Hey, Marissa.
Jessica Hamby here, checking in.
Yeah, Mitch Scandalakis is here as well.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for coming. We hope to go on the record in just a moment. I'd like to wait for Chairman Ware just another moment. But if she doesn't appear, then we can move forward with Vice Chair Johnson.
Jonathan, just checking with your review of the attendees as well. I still have Mr. Al McDaniel and Miss Anna Ware as not present in the meeting. Is that correct?
That's what I see, Matt. Yes, sir.
Jonathan, can you hear me? This is Mitch Scandalakis.
Yes, sir. Mr. Scandalakis. Yes, sir.
Could you please, for my benefit, introduce everyone that's participating in this thing? Because I don't know all these players.
Understood. And I will. I'd like to do it on the record, if that's okay with you, Mr. Scandalakis, just so that we have a record of attendance as well. Is that okay? I can do it twice.
No, that's fine. That's fine.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I have 6 after, Jonathan. I don't know if you'll respect everyone's time and go ahead and let the vice chair call us to order.
I do think that's appropriate. Yeah. Vice Chair Johnson, if you'd like to call the meeting to order. And I'm sorry, before you do so, apologies. Mr. Newman, we are ready to go on the record when you are.
And you may know to this, Mr. Lovell, I'm just saying this universally to everybody who's here tonight. When you are about to speak, even if it's for the second or third or fourth time, just always identify yourself at the beginning before you start speaking, just so I can be 100% certain I'm recording everybody correctly.
All right. I assume we're on the record. This is Jonathan Legel. I represent the board as the board's attorney. I'm a non-voting member. I'd like to propose to Vice Chair Johnson to open the meeting if that's agreeable.
Yes, thank you. Forgive my gravelly voice. I'd like to call the meeting of the Fulton County Animal Hearing Board to order.
If I may.
I was just going to help with roll call, if you don't mind.
That would be great. Thank you, Matt.
Miss Calissa Wade. Once again, Miss Calissa Wade.
Present. I'm here.
Miss Linda Johnson.
Present.
Mr. Al McDaniel. Miss Jessica Hamby.
Present.
Miss Anna Ware. Miss Miller.
Here.
Miss Kathy Crawford.
Present.
You have 2 people absent, but I believe we do have quorum, sir.
I agree. I think we do. At this point, since the meeting is open, I will just suggest a couple quick ground rules and make a couple announcements, and then we can proceed with the agenda as it stands. One of the questions that came up before the meeting, which I'd like to announce now, are the people involved. At this point, we've identified the 6 board members. The other individual speaking with me this evening is Matt Kalmeyer. He's a director of emergency management. He's a non-voting member or not, he's a non-voting member and is acting as secretary for this evening's meeting. My name is Jonathan Legel. My last name spelled Loegel. I am also a non-voting non-member of the board. I am the board's attorney. As this is a relatively newly constituted board, we are still somewhat informal, and this is a quasi-judicial proceeding. To the extent I can provide any guidance or suggestions, please don't hesitate to let me know. I have no opinion on any of the matters discussed today beyond any legal questions that are brought up. I would suggest that at this point, Ms. Johnson, we can move forward with the first agenda item if you'd prefer.
I'm sorry, Jonathan, I'm trying to pull that up.
Okay. I'll identify it for you, and then if you'd like to move to open it, we could have a move and a vote to open it. The first agenda item is an appeal by Jovan and Ronell Bryant. It's identified as B21-007216.
I'm sorry, I wasn't prepared to keep this meeting going, so I apologize. I would like to make a motion to move forward with B21-007216.
Kathy Crawford, I second.
It's Calissa Wade. I agree. Let's move forward.
Do I hear any discussion?
Then I propose we call a vote. If I may identify by name in alphabetical order, an yay or nay just to move forward. Ms. Crawford.
Yes, move forward.
Ms. Hamby.
Yay.
Ms. Johnson.
Yes.
Ms. Miller.
Yes.
And Ms. Wade.
Yay.
Okay, excellent. Ladies and gentlemen and guests present, these are relatively informal quasi-judicial affairs. As a result, we've identified on the agenda how they work. The matters need to be brought by an animal control representative. Is anyone present?
Javon Bryant here, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Bryant. I appreciate that. I understand, Mr. Bryant, that you're the appealing part. Animal control goes first. They have the burden of proof in this matter, and I don't have any indication that they're present yet.
Jonathan, I apologize for interrupting you. This is Mitch.
Fine.
Are you, the case you just called, is that the one that I'm involved in?
No, sir.
Okay.
You're the next one, but thank you.
I apologize. I don't have an agenda.
Excuse me, Jonathan, can you send me the agenda as well?
Yes. And
I'm so sorry.
while we're at it, if anyone else would like me to email them the agenda, please just put your email in the chat and I'll provide it to all of you.
I did hear from Anna earlier that she was in the car.
Rico, Miss Laura Hudson is on, but she is muted. Is there any way that you could help us ensure that she is unmuted from
panelist, she's been moved to panelist now.
Thank you, sir. Laura, you're now a panelist. You're unmuted.
Thank you. I've been here. I've been muted. I know that it's a challenge to deal with Zoom. Thank you. So are we ready to go, Jonathan?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Hudson.
I'll be brief. On 2/11, Fulton County Animal Services received a call for assistance from Emory Midtown Hospital. A Dr. Khan was reporting that a patient, Mr. Mock, was bitten at 2660 Acadia Street in Fulton County at approximately 10 p.m. the previous night on 2/10/21. Officer David Brown responded to the call, and I believe he's my witness number one. If he's not available, I can read a summary of the report.
Officer Brown's here.
Officer Brown was able, will you just let us know what you observed in your report and describe what happened in the activity that evening?
Yes, I will. Okay, on the day in question, I received a call from Mr. Mark, a black male. He was the one that was bitten by the dog. He's a pizza delivery guy. I went to his apartment and I verified he was bitten, and I got his statement of what happened. He stated that he went to the door. The dog was tied up on the porch. He didn't see it. It was at night, and the dog attacked and bit him on his leg. I went out to make quarantine arrangements at that address, and I spoke to a Mr. Octavius Dozer Jr., a black male at the residence. He stated the dog belonged to his cousin, and they've had the dog for 3 months. I explained to him about the bite. He said he was aware of the bite and that the dog is vicious and they will not put it in their house. So he released the dog to me to be quarantined at our shelter. Dog name is Ryder, a white and gray male pit bull. It was very aggressive when I picked it up.
Thank you, Officer Brown. And how long have you been an officer with Fulton County Animal Services?
Since 1984.
Thank you, and thank you for taking the time tonight. Mr. Bryant, the owner of the dog, arrived to reclaim his dog Ryder on 2/23/21. And as Ryder was being walked from quarantine area up to the lobby area so that Mr. Bryant could reclaim Ryder, one of our kennel techs was walking back by the other kennel tech who had Ryder on a leash, and Ryder walked by her and latched onto her thigh. I was sitting in my office at the time. I heard screaming. I waited a minute because it takes me a while to get back to the lobby area. It continued screaming, so I get up. By this time, I run to the front, and the dog had just let go, I imagine, of our kennel tech, Connie, and she is hopefully on the call as witness number 2, and she can describe what happened at that point.
Connie's here.
Connie, will you just walk us through what happened as you were walking by when they were bringing Ryder up for reclaim?
Yes, ma'am. I was coming back from the locker room, entering back into the kennel. And as I entered back into the kennel and was coming around the corner, I walked by, and when I approached my coworker and the dog, I just like reached my hand out for the dog to kind of get a sense of me. And at that time, the dog just turned around and jumped up and bit down onto my lower upper left thigh.
And did you go to did you seek medical treatment for that, Connie?
Yes, ma'am. I was rushed to Concentra, and then after that, I did a follow-up once a week for a month.
And was there 4 puncture wounds? Can you describe the injury?
Yes, ma'am. There was 4 puncture wounds. I was put on light duty from it.
And when Ryder bit, did he let go? Did he bite and let go?
Yes, ma'am.
How long was he on the thigh?
For a good 4 or 5 minutes.
How did you get him off?
When I took my 2 fingers, his bottom 2 teeth were locked into my leg. And as I was trying to take my hand and put it in his mouth to take his upper part of his mouth and try to pull off to where my coworker could at least pull the dog back, I believe when everyone that was rushing from the front into the kennel startled the dog, and that's what caused him to let go.
Okay, thank you. And that's when I arrived. I saw the puncture on Connie's leg. I made sure that our animal care director, Belinda, took care of Connie getting her to medical care. I went out to the front to meet Mr. Bryant at the time. I explained to him that his dog bit someone else and would need to be quarantined for an additional 10 days. Mr. Bryant told me at that time that he knew the dog would bite somebody. The dog bites and it's very vicious, and he wanted to go back and get the dog himself. So I told him that the dog possibly would be classified as dangerous, which has led us to where we are today. I think the dog is dangerous. I think you should be able to walk a dog without it biting someone severely. And that's pretty much it. Ryder's been with us since the initial bite.
Ms. Hudson, if that's the close of your evidence, then I would suggest that the chair, as a matter of practice, allow Mr. and Mrs. Bryant to present their case.
Yes, please, Mr. Bryant, proceed.
Madam Vice Chair, if I may intervene 1 second, I did receive a message that the chairperson is trying to break in. To go ahead and acknowledge that she is present. If I may, just Anna Ware, could you acknowledge that you are present?
Yes, I'm present. Can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am, we can.
Wonderful. Zoom wasn't letting me in earlier, but I am present. And if Laura Hudson has finished with her presentation, then I would say we should move along to Mr. and Mrs. Bryant for their presentation.
Mr. Bryan is present. My wife is at work right now. The day that it happened of the pizza man, my dog was on the leash. My dog has always been a nice dog. He's just on unfamiliar territory. I moved him to Atlanta in the process from South Carolina to Atlanta. So I placed my dogs there. I know the process of having the dogs with shelter and water and leash and signs. They're all over there. The pizza man.
I'm having a little trouble hearing him as the court reporter. I don't know if anybody else is having any trouble at all. I'm just mentioning that.
Mr. Bryan, I'm sorry, Mr. Bryan. Yeah, if you wouldn't mind speaking up for the court reporter, we want to make sure we get everything down.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir.
There were signs. There was everything that was needed to be done properly for my dogs to be one inside, and I have another one in the inside. Another pit bull in the inside as a house dog. That's why I don't have the two dogs in the house, not because they're vicious. And I never did say that my dog is vicious. But I stayed out there 3-4 hours, waiting on my uncle, waiting. And I explained to them while I was up there, this is not a dog, this is my child. I sent email Mrs. Laura Hudson some pictures of my dog, her and my daughter. The pictures that I sent, a vicious dog cannot take pictures, smile, and hug. Miss Hudson, did you receive those pictures through your email?
I did, and they have been submitted to the county. They're listed as appellant photos, I believe. There's 4.
Give me a second and I'll pull them up. Can I continue? Okay.
Certainly, Mr. Bryan, go ahead.
Yes, sir. While I was there, I waited and I waited and I waited, and Miss Hudson, I don't know if she's seen, but I was helping people, in and out. I was talking to the lady about the other dogs. I am a dog lover. I don't tie a dog up to I'm a dog lover. This is my child. And I explained that to Miss Hudson. But I sat out there and I talked about the other little dog that they had that been there for a couple years, and I just talked and talked and talked. So they finally, she finally override and said, hey, you know what? When I came with papers showing that, hey, my dog had shots. My dog has been updated with shots. I didn't come, I came and say, hey, here goes paperwork on my 2 dogs. I brought one for this dog. So while we sitting, the fee was $250. She waived it down to $200. I paid $200 cash. $200 cash. So they told me to go to the back, walk around the square to see if I can find my dog. And I didn't see him. I walked around. So he was in another part, maybe 30, 40 feet behind the other main building. So when I come back, I talked to the 2 front ladies that worked the office. I talked to those 2. And I explained to her, okay, my dog was in there for biting somebody. She was explaining to me, okay, hey, he need the proper shots. She was showing me the steps that I need to take to make sure that he's straight for Fulton County. And I did get that. I did pay for that. I sat there and I paid for it and I waited. Well, in the process of me waiting, I explained to the man, can I go back to get my dog? They said he's in Q7. Is that where Ryder's still at, in Q7, Mrs. Laura?
Ryder's in the quarantine barn and the public's not allowed in the quarantine barn. Yes, he's in quarantine.
That's Q. He's still in Q7. He was in Q7 when before I paid for him to get him out. He was all the way in the back in Q7. So it was 2 officers, but at the same time, as I explained to them, can I please get my dog? I said it multiple times to 2 people, 4 people. The 2 ladies that worked the front, one with the dreads, I don't know. The other one's name was Mickey. I do know her name. Her name was Nikki or Mickey. And Mickey explained to me that we have professionals to go back there and get my dog. So he went 30 to 40 feet, maybe 50 feet in quarantine to get my dog and come all the way. He did not bite nobody between 30 to 40, 50 feet. He let somebody put a leash on him, an unknown person put a leash on him and walk him out of quarantine into the new part of the animal shelter. I explained to them. I begged them. So when it happened, when I heard it. I was the second back there. I was the second one back there. As soon as you go through the double doors, that's why he let go. They was all standing there. They was in shock. They didn't know what to do. I went back there and I saw Miss Crawford and she saw me. They took her into the other room with her board and clipboard in her hand and towel pressed. And then after the fact, I talked to Miss Hudson like, hey, why is he being, she did not explain to me, hey, I did not explain to her, say, hey, my dog is vicious. I explained to her and said, this is my child. Can I please have my, he can't get another shot. Why is he being quarantined again? Well, because he bit somebody. Well, she gave me an option, or I could move him to a shelter. We had a conversation. It was nothing as what she just presented. We had a conversation and she said, I could move him if I could take him to a place that would quarantine him to hold him. And then as I'm steady talking, she already had threatened me with the process of this right here, filling out the paperwork to file him as vicious because I paid $200. I didn't get my money back. I came all the way from South Carolina. I stayed out there for 3 hours. I even was upset and I calmed down and I explained. I called back 30 minutes to an hour after I left. I was upset and I still apologized before I left to Miss Hudson and everything to let her know that, hey, this is not just a dog. This is my child. I called back and talked to Mickey to make sure was the young lady, Mrs. Crawford, was fine. I made several calls and talked to Mrs. Mickey to make sure the young lady was fine. I just don't understand how could a dog be vicious enough for you to put a chain on him, a leash, not even a chain. He didn't have a muzzle. He didn't have nothing. He came from Q7 all the way up to the front, almost right by the double doors where she's bent the curve. The dog was started. She was walking towards him. They was coming towards this way. The dog was startled, and that was what caused the bit. The same way the pizza man said he didn't see the dog, and that's how he got bit. If he's on the leash, that's here long enough to the door, not to bite you. So he walked towards the door and didn't see the dog. He bit him, and that's all I can say. My dog is a nice dog. He's a friendly dog, and I can prove to y'all he's a lovable dog. And I rest my case.
Okay, Mr. Bryant, that's all you have at this time?
Yes, ma'am.
Animal control, would you like to take your turn to rebut any statements?
Sure. I just want to mention that I too love dogs. That's why I work there. I'm not trying to classify his dog as vicious. It's only dangerous so that parameters will be in place so that other people don't get bit. The state requires us to quarantine dogs after a bite, and I'm very willing to work with people to quarantine their dogs at their local veterinarians, which is what he was describing earlier. However, Ryder did bite 2 people pretty viciously, and I feel confident that the way the law is written, that he should be classified as a dangerous animal. And that's my closing.
Mr. Bryant, this is your opportunity to make a closing statement.
I just, I think I said enough. I don't know what degree or what, how do you know you can classify a dog as vicious? You know, if a man can walk 50 feet from picking them up on the leash to the front and not been bitten, I just don't consider that a vicious dog.
Jonathan, do we have any witnesses or evidence that needs to be examined or heard?
Mr. Bryant mentioned photographs a moment ago. I'd love to give him an opportunity to present those if he'd like to.
Mr. Bryant, are you able to email those photos to Jonathan?
Ms. Ware, they're available right now,
yes.
And they're up on the screen. I would
yes,
suggest Mr. Bryant, feel free to describe them.
That is my daughter, Taya, and Ryder. They just laying in the bed, just taking pictures. She's 13 years old on that picture right there. I had Ryder since he was a puppy. Ryder's going on 3 years old, and this is his second accident ever in his life. That's them again. And
do we have any questions from any of the board members?
I have a few questions. This is Calissa Wade.
Excuse me.
Perfect. If you would always please identify yourself so the court reporter will know who's speaking.
When
Thank you.
everybody starts speaking, even if they've spoken before and they're coming back in, just say your name before you talk, please. That would be very
Yeah, absolutely. This is Calissa Wade. I have a question for Laura first. Do we have photographs of the injuries?
Connie, do you have photographs of your bite?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry. Can you show those?
Give me 1 second.
Laura, is she able to hold the picture on her phone up to? Is that sufficient?
guys, for the benefit, this is Mr. Scandalakis. For the benefit of the court reporter, we still need to identify ourselves before we speak.
Yes, sir. Is there any way that I can hold the picture up to the camera to show the bite?
Okay, once again, folks, we just make sure, like the last gentleman just stated, for the court reporter's sake, this is Matthew Kallmeyer. I'm acting as the secretary tonight. Please go ahead and acknowledge your name when you go ahead and speak.
This is Connie Durden. Is it all right if I show the picture up to the screen?
This is Jonathan Lego. Yes, Mr. Durden, that's fine.
I can get in the thing to where they can actually see it. The way the camera's set up on it, you can't. Are y'all able to see that?
This is Calissa Wade. I can see it.
This is Kathy
This is
Crawford.
Jessica
I can see it.
Board members, this is Anna Ware, your chairman. Does anyone have any questions?
This is Kathy Crawford. I have a question. When the dog was being brought from quarantine, did anything transpire between the dog and the person who was bringing him from quarantine that would just all of a sudden make him go bite? That's the part I don't understand. Judging from what the owner has said and judging from what animal control has said, to bring the dog from point A to point B, and then all of a sudden the dog bites is what I don't understand. Something had to transpire to make the dog bite. I mean, if the dog is just, you know, gloop de gloop de gloop de gloop, and then all of a sudden, yank, I don't understand that. That's my question.
This is Jessica Hamby. I used to work for animal control. I volunteered in the kennels also as a Fulton County animal control officer. And I know how stressful the barn can be. So moving an animal from the quarantine bar can be somewhat traumatizing for these animals. And I was just wondering if any of that went into play, because I know just volunteering there, a lot of the dogs, just bringing in a new dog off my truck, they'll all row, 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 bark and be excited. And that can cause a lot of, because it's variables to the situation.
This is Laura Hudson. I can appreciate that. And if this weren't the second bite and the dog was already in our custody for a first bite, I would take that into consideration when classifying a dog, and I don't do it lightly. My concern is that this dog is fine with his family, it appears, but when, as his owner stated, he's in an unfamiliar situation or he's around someone that he doesn't know, he can be triggered to bite. And I feel that I'm not doing my due diligence if I don't let someone know that my opinion is that this dog should be classified as dangerous. I'm not asking to hold it pending court order disposition or euthanize him. I just want there to be some basic parameters in place for us to release this dog so that other people, like delivery people, will see a note on the door, a sign that says there's a dangerous dog here.
This is Kathy Crawford again. Laura, I can understand where you're coming from, but how many times do you see a sign on a door? And I'll give you a typical example. At one of the Walmarts here, there's a sign on the door that says door closed. And people will go up to that door constantly and pull the handle, and then they'll go, oops, the door is locked. So something is transpiring to make this dog just all of a sudden get up and start biting people. And that's the part I don't understand. And to punish this owner or this dog is just wrong, because something is making this dog do this. I understand you say, you know, he's comfortable with his family. Yeah, but something is causing this dog to go ballistic. And it appears that when other people are doing something with this dog and the owner himself said, let me go get my dog, and then you come back and say, okay, the public is not allowed back. To me, it just doesn't flow. Something is missing in this entire event that's leading me to say, okay, something is happening to this dog, with this dog, to make this dog take a defensive position. And nobody yet has told me what that something is. I'm done.
This is Linda Johnson. Do we have a statement from the delivery person?
This is Laura Hudson. I did speak with him and he did not want to participate further. He, I believe, lives in Chicago.
So this is Marissa Miller. I'm a board member representing District 6. And I have a few comments and questions. So I'll make my comments first, and then Ms. Hudson, I have a few questions for you. My first comment is, I understand having to sequester an animal when an attack has been made. What I don't understand is and I gather from what Jessica has shared that, and having been to the shelter, that there's different phases at which animals are kept based on the reasons why they are brought in. But any of us who've been around dogs, particularly, I mean, even at a dog park, when a new dog comes into a dog park, there's a certain level of excitement and energy. What I don't know is when a dog is brought into facility for an attack, a puncture wound attack, are they put on a muzzle? Is there some counter behavioral bite training or support given to that animal while they are in quarantine? What is the circumstance around their quarantine environment that helps to either alleviate or correct the behavior, or to create a more soothing and calming environment to absolve whatever the anxiety was that has caused this reaction? So those are questions directly to Ms. Hudson. And then I have a secondary question for her about what this vicious classification will mean for this dog. This is not our first convening for these kinds of events, where someone purports to have been injured. In this case, we've got pictures and evidence and commentary around what the injuries were. But we're not recommending euthanization. We just want signage on the door for this one. In prior instances, we wanted to notate dogs that had already been spayed and neutered. In another case, we actually recommended spaying and neutering. So my third question is, I understand there's a law, but the law also gives us some degrees with which we can exact the restitution, right? Or the payment, punishment for that action. What I'm not hearing is, at first bite, we typically do this. At first bite, if it's a nick, we currently do this. If two animals are involved in an incident, we do this. I'm hearing a very general kind of assumption or a series of suggestions, and I would love for us to narrow down a process around this is a first incident. And even though this dog has bit twice, it's still under the singular reason why the dog was brought in. So this is what we do with the first incident case for a dog XYZ. So can we talk a little bit, Ms. Hudson, to the group about how taking a dog into quarantine works to absolve? And then what are the suggested tiered measures around corrective behavior and support for the animal and their family?
So this is Laura Hudson for the court reporter. We are required to quarantine any bite animals that come in. We are not there to provide training or corrective measures for animals. The animals, when they come in for a bite quarantine, they're in a single run by themselves. They're not group housed with other animals. And we keep an eye on the dog to make sure they don't exhibit signs of rabies, whether they're vaccinated or not. That's their purpose for being at the shelter in an isolated area for the 10-day quarantine. I'm not trying to classify the dog as vicious. I'm just suggesting, which is I'm very grateful for the board to overrule my classification. And it's a huge responsibility to try to decide on whether to classify a dog or not. And if a dog had just bitten somebody one time, I wouldn't classify it. If the dog bit someone and it was a bite and a let go, I wouldn't classify it. Even if it was 2 bites and it was a bite and let go, I wouldn't classify it. When a dog bites somebody and doesn't let go and they have to pry that dog off of them, that's a dangerous dog to me. And like I said before, I'm very grateful that it's not completely on me. And if the board decides to let this animal go back to the owner without any restrictions, I'm very fine with that. And I'm happy to have a discussion at another time with all of the board members to talk about dangerous dogs and vicious dogs. A dangerous dog, to answer also your other question about what parameters are in place for dangerous classification. Not only do the owners of dangerous and vicious dogs have to post signs at areas of entry and exit to their primary residence, the dog would have to be neutered, as I had mentioned a couple of weeks ago. The dog would have to have a muzzle when he was out in public and be on a leash that's 6 feet or less. The dog would need to be microchipped. If the owner transferred ownership to another person, Fulton County would need to be notified about that. If Mr. Bryant takes Ryder back to South Carolina, I would notify county in South Carolina that a classified dangerous dog is going to be arriving in their county, and they would need to take whatever precautions necessary to make sure that they abide by the rules for that particular county with regard to classified animal. There needs to be insurance to the tune of $50,000, which is usually in a general home insurance policy to cover any additional injuries caused by a classified animal. I believe there's a $100 registration fee to register the animal as dangerous, and there might be 1 or 2 other things. I don't have it in front of me right now, but like I said, I'm happy to meet with all of you at any time to answer very specific questions or questions in general about how we impound bite dogs, quarantine, classification, and citations. If that's what we need to do, I'm happy to do that.
So this is Marissa Miller. So one other clarifying question. You're recommending this dog be classified as dangerous or vicious?
Dangerous.
And the distinction between the two is what?
A vicious animal would have to have, I believe, $75,000 surety bond to cover additional injuries if that were to occur. An owner cannot own more than 1 vicious dog. They can own more than 1 dangerous dog. It would be a vicious dog if it caused permanent disfigurement, which this dog didn't do.
Excuse.
Thank you.
I just, Javon, this is Javon Bryan speaking again. Honestly, Miss Laura, I had if I had the funds by any means, I wouldn't have a hearing right now. I don't have the funds. I don't. Once again, me and you talk, I apologize to you. And I had to let you know that that's my child. Me and you talk, I had a bag of dog food that's still sitting at the house that I had got from y'all. Y'all even gave me a bag of dog food. I gave $200 that I didn't have, but I still gave it. And all I walked away was a receipt that you wrote on that I wouldn't have to pay next time when I pick my dog up. But you already had threatened me with this. No matter the judgment to be, if it's possible, we stand here. That's why I transfer everything up here. But I would just like to see my dog.
This is Jessica Hamby. I have a question for Appellant 3. The owner of the dog. Did you not state that there was a warning sign on your property?
It's yes, ma'am. I've read the laws as putting your dogs outside so the SPCA won't fine you. Your dog need to have a full 5-gallon bucket of water. If it's hot, it needs shelter. It needs signs out there. Even if it's a fence, I still need to have a tarp over it. I've read all the laws on how to put these dogs out here. When I came to y'all, I had my paperwork showing y'all, hey, my dog, here go the shots record right here. Miss Mickey said, yeah, you're right. Y'all had a photo of it. Y'all took a copy of it. And then she told me, sir, you was right, but this one right here just expired a couple months ago or last year. Would you like to, well, he already got it. Would you like to go ahead and pay for it? I paid for something that I never got. I explained it. I begged. I begged 5 times.
This is Jessica Hamby again. I was more addressing, didn't you state that you had a sign that said there was a dog on the property?
Yes, ma'am. It's a beware. It's a beware of dog. It's a no trespassing sign on mine and my neighbor's dog, not my uncle's neighbors.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to clear that up.
This is Chairman Ware. This is a question for Laura Hudson. Laura, I understand this gentleman's position that he doesn't have the funds to carry out everything. Is it possible that Fulton County Animal Control in this case could provide him with a complimentary spay-neuter?
This is Laura Hudson. Yes, we do that for almost every animal that gets returned when the fees are waived. Ryder's been in our care since February 11th. I'm not charging any kenneling fees, which is $12 a day. It's a $250 fee for a quarantine times 2. And I'm happy to apply the $200 that he says he paid toward the $100 registration and not charge him a thing and give him the neuter for no cost. Our veterinarian's happy to do that.
Thank you.
So this is Marissa Miller. Ms. Hudson, did he pay you $200 or not? Because you just said he paid it. And I think Ms. Ware's question was around how to care for the costs. So is there a record that $200 was received in attempt compliance for the first quarantine or no?
This is Laura Hudson. He didn't pay me $200, but I'm sure it's in our software system, Chameleon, if I believe him when he says he paid $200 for the first quarantine. And I very possibly reduce the fee. I do it often.
Okay. I was just, this is Marissa Miller. I was just curious about the language positioning. That's all that for you to state that he said he paid it suggests to me that there may be some questioning around truth. And I just want to make sure representing this board, representing this county and the sensitivity of the nature of this case, that we are talking in absolutes and truths and we have all the information as a board that we need so that we can deliberate and care for this in the most appropriate manner. Thank you.
This is Linda Johnson. So my understanding from the previous cases is if we do not deem the dog a dangerous dog, then, excuse me, my voice is gone, then the dog that is returned to the owner without being neutered or because he's been quarantined is the dog then required to be neutered?
No. This is Laura Hudson. No. If you overrule the classification of dangerous, the dog is not required to be neutered.
Linda Johnson, thank you for that clarification.
This is Chairman Ware. Do we have any additional questions or comments from the board members?
This is Calissa Wade. And you can please stop me if this is not an appropriate comment question, but I am just curious what the parameters the owner plans to set up to protect the dog, because he stated that the dog is obviously reactive when it's in unknown situations.
Excuse me, this is Javon speaking again. Once again, once anybody gets started when you scared, we just don't bite. We just don't react as animals. We don't. We jump. We get scared. We jump. And if you get fear enough, you'll strike back. And my dog was startled. The pizza man stated he didn't see the dog, so he obviously walked closer to the dog. But I will take proper every measures that I have before when I put him out there. It wasn't a long chains. It wasn't he had a collar around his neck. He didn't have nothing choking him. He had a collar. I've been taking proper measures. It's just the people that's around him haven't taken proper measures of going to get a dog or going up somebody's stairs and knocking on the door and not seeing the dog. You got to be aware of where you're walking. If you're coming around the corner and somebody, I just think they should have had proper training on bringing my dog to the front. He didn't bite nobody 50 feet, at least 50 feet from the back of the. So I took proper measures all the way up until the bites, man. I had no control of my dog back there. I asked, I begged, but my dog didn't bite with me. He didn't bite with the man up there until he came around and seen. I don't know. But I have taken, I have read, and I have put up signs.
This is Linda Johnson again. Mr. Bryan, is this the only dog on the premises?
No, ma'am. I have another blue nose, lovable dog named Roscoe Bryant. And he's in the inside. So I all of my dogs, they take when the man the SPCA man came out there, he can't say there was malnutrition. He couldn't say nothing else about a butterfly. My dogs have been taken proper. I came in with shot records. I've been taking care of my dog.
This is Linda Johnson again. So the dog in question is just an outside dog, is that correct?
No, ma'am. I rotate them. Sometimes I keep Roscoe in. Sometimes I have both of them in. But man, when you have two big grown dogs that love to play and jump on you all day long, you just don't have time for it. You won't put one aside and you're gonna love one. You can't love both of them. If you're a dog lover, you understand. But I take care of them. Yes, ma'am.
Any additional questions? This is Chairman Ware asking if there's any board member that would like to make a motion.
This is Kathy Crawford. I would like to make a motion that we do not classify this dog as dangerous or vicious.
This is Jessica Hamby, and I do not want to declare this dog dangerous or vicious.
This is Matthew
This is
Calmeyer.
where-
Motion is on the table. I think we have to go ahead now and second the motion. Mr. Logal, you could go ahead and correct me if I'm right or wrong on that statement.
Mr. Kalmeyer, you are correct. This is Jonathan Legel, sorry.
This is Linda Johnson. Ms. Hamby, are you seconding the motion?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Okay, Jonathan, would we go ahead with the vote now? This is Chairman Ware.
This is Jonathan Legel, yes. I'd recommended there's an active motion on the floor and it's been seconded. It's prepared for the board members to vote on it. Out of an abundance of clarity, I'm going to suggest that I call the board members by name and allow them to vote yay or nay on the decision to declare this dog not dangerous. I'll start with Member Crawford.
Yes.
Member Hamby.
Yay.
Member Johnson.
Yes.
Member Miller.
Yes.
Member Wade.
Yes.
And Member Ware.
No.
Based on my understanding of the vote, it is 5 votes in favor of declaring the dog not dangerous and 1 vote in opposition to that. I would suggest the motion passes and the dog is declared not dangerous.
Okay.
If I may, this is Jonathan Legel again. If I may suggest to Chairman Ware, if you'd like to call the next matter, it is an appeal brought by Carolyn O'Brien. The matter number I have is A878302.
Yes, if we may please proceed with that. This is Chairman Ware and Fulton County Animal Control, if you would please state your case.
Sure. So we on December.
Mr. Skandalakis, I hate to interrupt. Madam Chairman, I have a few procedural motions that I would like to make before we get into their case, because I think it would be dispositive of this issue.
I'm going to let Jonathan respond to that, please.
Now would be an appropriate time for any party to make pre-evidentiary motions. So this would be an opportunity for either side to do so. As Mr. Skandalakis has brought this first, I'd suggest he goes first.
Yes, sir.
Please go forward.
Thank you. First of all, Ms. Hudson was not a witness to the event, did not investigate the event on the scene, did not even appear on the scene, and anything that comes out of her mouth would be hearsay with regards to what is going on, unless the young lady, Teresa Gray, is present on the scene, who was there when the Roswell Police Department were tasing this dog. There should be no evidence brought forward by the county with regards to what occurred that night or with regards to anything going forward from an investigative standpoint. My second point with regards and I'm asking for a motion to dismiss the designation as a dangerous dog. My second point is, this is an interesting case from the standpoint, and I won't go into all the details of it in this motion, but this occurred on December 1st, is my recollection. This dog, with the permission of Fulton County, was moved out of the county to a facility called the Dog Spot, which I think is in Walton County, if I'm not mistaken. This dog is therefore no longer within the jurisdiction of Fulton County for it to be able to pass any judgment on what its disposition is with regards to dangerous or not dangerous. Thirdly, it's important for this board to know that on February 15th, remember this happened on December 1st, I wrote a letter to Ms. Hudson because there had been no investigation to this point surrounding the circumstances of why this dog was allowed to be tased over 20 times by the Roswell Police Department, okay, and why the individual that initiated this event was a homeowner living in an apartment who allowed his dog to run untethered and confronted Oakley, which started this event. So I wrote Laura Hudson and Lifeline Animal Project a letter on February 15th, which they received, and I asked them to investigate why all of this happened, and there had been no investigation, because they should have immediately investigated why this other French bulldog was allowed to run unleashed, untethered, in violation of Fulton County ordinances that started this whole attack, had started this whole incident. Why they didn't do anything about that. In response to that letter, on March 3rd, she sends a designation that Oakley, the victim in this case, was a dangerous dog. Now, the third point I want to make is, in response to that March 3rd letter, I sent on March 17th an open records request to the Fulton County Animal Services and Laura Hudson, and I asked some very basic information to be provided under Georgia Open Records law, which under Georgia law is supposed to be provided within 3 days, 3 business days of their receipt. They failed to respond. Did not respond within 3 days, did not respond at all. It was only after I received another phone call from another Fulton County person, well after the time passed for the open records request, on December, I'm trying to remember when it was. We were told at some point, and I did not write the date down, that we were going to get all of the information that we requested. We only got a couple of videos and a couple of documents from Roswell's chest cams, which occurred after the tasing of this animal, okay, after the tasing. So they have purposely withheld information. We don't have the information we need to show that Fulton County does not always charge dogs as being dangerous when a dog bites someone and when there are puncture wounds or when there are scratches. So we have been put at a disadvantage. So the main points here are hearsay, not acceptable. Carolyn O'Brien and Oakley have a right to confront their accusers. They have a right to have someone from animal control testify as to what they saw that night and what occurred. That's not happening here. Laura Hudson is testifying to this and just repeating things from Roswell Police Department, who lied about how many times they tased Oakley incidentally in their police report. This dog was tased over 20 times. He had burn marks all over his body, including his rear end. He had 50,000 volts over 20 times shot into him, and he has burn marks all over his body. And he didn't even start this incident. So I would appreciate that the board listen to this motion and digest it and come up with a just conclusion with regards to it.
Ms. Hudson, to respond to any of that before I make any suggestions or comments?
Sure. This is not a criminal procedure. I'm not prepared to address it as a criminal procedure. This is an administrative hearing. So I think what I have to say is important. I don't think I needed to be there to classify this dog as dangerous. And yes, Oakley was transferred to the dog spot, just like I mentioned in the previous case, where I don't mind transferring an animal to be held at a separate location. Miss O'Brien had her courier sign a live evidence foster agreement saying that that dog would be held and not transferred. And I can bring that to the criminal procedure if this were a criminal procedure. Additionally, you did send me an open records request. It was sent to the wrong email address, and when it was corrected, you sent me a follow-up email saying, please disregard the previous open records request. I'm certainly not prepared to defend that because like I said initially, this is not a criminal procedure. Not sure why he's been given all this leeway before I could even present a case.
This is Jonathan Legel. Let me comment and make some rulings on the proceeding as it stands, simply because I'm the board's attorney. I understand these are quasi-judicial proceedings, but I would also recommend and rule from a procedural and legal standpoint that Mr. Skandalakis's request that hearsay not be admitted as evidence is valid and accurate. To the extent that either party has firsthand knowledge of the events or can produce witnesses or documents that and knowledge, I think those should be submitted and can be submitted. But to the extent that, and at this point, no one's presented any evidence, but to the extent that either party would presume to present evidence that's hearsay, I would suggest that the opposing party object to the extent that happens, and I can make a ruling as it proceeds on that. I would suggest to both, though, to avoid that. So if it's not a matter that you saw, you heard, or you performed yourself, it is more than likely hearsay. If there's a question about that. Moving on to the second matter, which is whether or not the county has jurisdiction. I understand that because there's a live evidence holding on the animal needs to be returned at the request of animal control. If that's the case, then the county still does have jurisdiction over the animal and can seek the animal's return. If either side can put forth evidence the dog is not in the county and there is not a live evidence ruling, then I'm happy to revisit that. With regard to the third request, the open records request, that is a matter that either side could take up via an open records contest. To the extent that either side would like to seek the board's motion to continue this to pursue additional evidence, I'm sure the board can vote on that. And I'll leave that decision, because it's in board discretion, up to the board. I have no opinion either way if such a motion is brought.
Jonathan, may I briefly respond? This is
certainly. Please respond. And again, Mr. Skandalakis, so these are quasi-judicial proceedings. So please feel free to interrupt me.
No, I don't want to just interrupt you for the sake of it, but it is vitally important. And the reason why I asked at the beginning of this meeting who was present is because it is incumbent upon this organization that runs this animal control department to have witnesses who are available to speak as to the events. Where's the Roswell police officers that tased this dog 12 times with 50,000 votes? Where is the alleged victim of the Roswell police officer who aggressively tried to grab Oakley and got bit for his efforts? These issues, no one is here other than the director of this organization. It needs to be dismissed because everything that comes out of her mouth is hearsay.
And this is Carolyn O'Brien. I would just also say Teresa, the responding officer, I don't see her on here, and she was phenomenal. I guess my question is, why is she not present? She was extraordinary when she responded.
This is Jessica Hamby. I actually used to work with Teresa. I believe she's on the emergency over hours. On call. Also, I have a question for Mr. Skandalakis. Was a use of force report not generated or issued by the Roswell Police Department?
Roswell Police Department did not issue anything other than some bogus incident report that basically says crime incidents, ordinance, dogs, leash law. So they're implying that the reason why what happened was a dog was off the leash. That is all that is on this document from the Roswell Police Department.
Once again, this is Jessica Hamby for the court reporter. It sounds like this is all hearsay at this point. Said there was no use of force report generated. Why isn't the officer on this call? Did he sustain any injuries? Do we have any record of him receiving medical treatment?
This is Linda Johnson. I would appreciate if we could allow this to sort of open up to witnesses that are here for and to hear from Laura on Fulton County's position, only because my understanding is that it's not her responsibility to be a witness to an event. That would be pretty much impossible for her in her position. She would be giving the report on behalf of the county. Is that not correct?
This is Jonathan Lake.
Madam Vice Chair.
This is Jonathan.
Go ahead,
Mitch,
Jonathan.
let me respond first. I'm sorry, we keep speaking over each other, and I apologize for that. This is Jonathan Lagle. I think we have a question on the floor, which is, Laura, are there any other witnesses or firsthand testimony available in this matter besides any statements you'd like to make?
I believe Meredith Masisak or her attorney, Andy Goldberg, is on the call. She's the bite victim.
Okay. In that case, I would suggest that if they have firsthand knowledge, that we open the proceeding to allow them to produce it, knowing full well that the burden of proof is always on the on animal control in this matter. And if they do not produce evidence sufficient to make that finding, if they don't produce valid evidence sufficient to make that finding, then it's incumbent upon the board to rule to the best of their judgment. Again, I will just, re-recommend that no one try to produce or introduce hearsay, and any firsthand knowledge. I would suggest we move forward with this proceeding to allow that, and then at the close of either side's evidence, I'm sure the board would entertain a motion to dismiss at that point for lack of evidence, or frankly, a motion on the pleadings, or a motion notwithstanding the verdict for lack of evidence.
This is Mitch Kandelakis. Jonathan, with that being said, we will go ahead and, I'm happy to hear from Ms. Masisak, because she literally is the only witness here who is testifying on behalf of Oakley, not on behalf of Fulton County or Animal Control or Laura Hudson. So I'm happy to hear from her at this time.
Okay, well, in that case, I would suggest we open to allow Animal Control to go first, if they have any witnesses to present or testimony that's admissible, and then we proceed from there. Madam Chair, the opportunity to open a hearing is still yours, and you may direct the procedural status as you see.
Yes, thank you. This is Chairman Ware. I would like to have Fulton County proceed with their evidence in this case.
This is Laura Hudson. On December 1st, 2020, we received a call for assistance from Roswell Police Department at approximately 8 p.m. regarding a bite which occurred at 190 Autumn Ridge Trail in Fulton County. I obtained video footage from the Roswell Police Department officer, Robert Attica, who was the second bite victim, and also Meredith. That's one of my exhibits on MP4, I believe I submitted, also along with bite victim pictures from Miss Meredith Masisak. And I do want to state that, just for the record, the 2 bites occurred prior to any tasing of the animal.
I would ask that that not be allowed, that statement be stricken unless you saw that, Ms. Hudson. And to the extent that the video, you'd like to produce a video, if you can present someone who can authenticate the video, who can say, I was there when the video happened, or I took the video, we should show it. If you took the photographs, I would recommend we show those. But without some level of authentication, I would rule that evidence shouldn't be admitted at this hearing.
Well, Miss Meredith Masisak was there.
Okay.
She's in the video.
Is this
okay,
when
well,
I
I would, I would suggest, and again, this is Jonathan Lagle, and I apologize for interrupting. I would suggest that you call her and ask any questions and allow her to testify to what she may have seen, heard, or done.
Miss Masisak, are you on the call?
Yes, this is Masisak.
Hi, I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name. Can you tell us what happened on the night of December 1st, 2020?
Yes, on the night of December 1st, 2020, I was taking my dog and my foster dog, Oakley, on our final walk of the evening. We had gone through on 3 other walks previously in the exact same area that we were walking this 4th time. And upon entering this particular area of the apartment complex parking lot, a dark colored sedan pulled into a parking spot, and car doors opened with a female driver getting out and a male getting out on the passenger side, and 2 male children getting out in the back from the back seat. And when the left rear driver's side door opened, a small French bulldog that I recognized as Ginger, who I had met in the dog park previously on previous occasions, jumped out of the car off leash. I yelled to the family. My exact first words were, "She cannot come over here. Please, please get her. Do not let her come here." She continued to run over towards and aggress towards myself, Oakley, and my dog, Rosie. They made no efforts to recall their dog. They made no efforts to come and get their dog. They just kind of stood by their car. And as such, Ginger ran over towards myself, Oakley, and Rosie and scared Oakley. And in him being scared, he started barking and lunging, and then that scared my dog. And I, in my efforts to diffuse the situation and break up the kind of mayhem that was occurring at that moment, I then became the victim of the dog bites. And there was a Good Samaritan that had to step in and help me separate the 2 dogs. My dog got separated, and then there were some other bites that occurred after my dog was removed off scene. And I have no idea what happened to the dog Ginger at that moment, because she kind of swooped in, caused a bunch of crap, and then left, essentially is what happened. We had gone on 3 other walks on that exact same day in that exact same location with no incident whatsoever. And that honestly is all I can speak to, because I, at that point, needed medical attention. And so whatever happens after that involvement, when Oakley got calmed down by the Good Samaritan, I cannot speak to. And that's what happened.
Thank you. And I'm unsure, I'm not an attorney, but can I show this video or no?
Let me, in the abundance of caution, and because this is a quasi judicial matter, want to be as liberal and allow as much evidence to be presented to the board as possible, but it does need some level of authentication. So let me ask a couple questions. Ms. Masisak, have you ever seen any body camera footage from any officers relating to this matter?
No, sir.
Do you know whether any officers have any body camera footage? Have you seen a body camera activated about this incident?
No, sir.
Okay. Ms. Hudson, do you have any officers who have body camera footage present who can testify that it's their camera footage?
No, I don't think so.
All right. In that case, I'm going to determine that any body camera footage that may or may not be available would be hearsay without authentication or an exception to hearsay. And I'm going to rule that it can't be presented to the board.
Thank you.
Okay, well, that's my closing will be, that's fine. That's fine. If Oakley were to go on and hurt somebody else, I don't want to say that I didn't do anything. So fair enough. I'm learning, as we all are, as we go through this new process.
This is Linda Johnson. When was the police involved? like there seems to be a gap in when the police were called and the tasing and so forth. Can we have an understanding of sort of the environment of all this?
I sent an email to Officer Robert Attica, but I don't know if he was able to join us or not.
I can speak to some of that. This is Meredith Massasak. I know that the Good Samaritan, that was the only one that stepped in to help the situation. I think I see him on the call. Hi, Cayman. He actually, I know that he actually dialed 911. I know for a fact he called because I actually ended up speaking to 911. There were a lot of people around, I think. And so I don't know how many other calls from 911 they received from this incident, but I do know that Cayman called 911 as well.
Thank you.
This is Jonathan Legel again. I would suggest that at this point, before the board ask additional questions, that we allow the appellant to proceed with his case in chief, and then we proceed procedurally with any arguments to close, and then the board has an opportunity to ask questions, perhaps after some more evidence has been presented.
So Jonathan, am I to understand that at this point, my motion to dismiss based upon the lack of any evidence that is otherwise hearsay? Of course, we have the evidence from Ms. Masiak that Ginger started this whole thing, but because there's no other evidence, are you overruling that motion?
Mr. Skandalakis, this is Jonathan Legel again. I believe evidence has been presented. I have no opinion at all on the weight of the evidence, but because there is some evidence, I would recommend that, yes, at this point, your motion to dismiss for lack of evidence has been denied, but you may renew it if you'd like to renew it as a motion on the pleadings, or like I said, a motion for judgment as a matter of law, and present some argument with regard to that the board in total may vote on, because that's essentially the equivalent of the board's mandate here, which is whether or not the dog is dangerous and whether there's evidence to support it. In the alternative, I would suggest you may put up evidence of your own, and then we proceed procedurally and allow the board to vote.
Yes, sir. This is Mitch Skandalakis, and I apologize. I'm not trying to beat a dead horse, so to speak. But since the only evidence is that Ginger started this by being off lease and charging Oakley, it would seem to me that a directed verdict would be best to try to dispose of this before we put on any evidence, because this is it. That's the only evidence in front of the board, is that Ginger started this untethered, ran out of the car. The owners ignored Meredith's pleas to stop him, and he created this whole incident.
This is Chairman Ware. Jonathan, may we now have Mr. Skandalakis present their case?
Mr. Skandalakis, I'm going to reserve judgment on your motion to allow you to present evidence. And then if you'd like to move again after the evidence, or allow the board to vote pursuant to their mandate, I'd suggest we do that.
Thank you, sir.
Let me also add, but I do reserve the right to rule on that after the presentation of your evidence.
This is Linda Johnson again. I see on the call there are several witnesses and others I would like to have an understanding of. Are there more people to come forward to talk on behalf of one or the other? I want to make sure that we allow all this evidence to come out before Mr. Skandalakis presents his case.
Yes, ma'am. This is Mitch Skandalakis, and to address Ms. Johnson's request, there are two witnesses here. Cayman Sale is on this call, and he has to is going to an appointment, so we only have him for a few minutes. But he was the good faith Samaritan that came to Meredith's help and calmed Oakley down before the Roswell PD showed up. So with that being said, Cayman, are you still there?
Yes, I am right here. I'm safe. I know it sounds crazy to be on my phone doing. Trust me, I'm looking at my GPS.
Okay. Well,
everything's good here. Listen, I don't know. I look, that dog is the sweetest thing. You know, people get abused, animals get abused, and they'll have episodes. Like my mother's mentally ill. Like, should we put her down if she has an episode? I don't think so. That dog can be taken care of. It has to have a proper backyard. No little dogs that's gonna rile it up. And if I had a home of my own, not an apartment, I would take that dog in a heartbeat. And I'm not even really a dog person, to be honest, but that's just how I feel.
Cayman, this is Mitch Scandalakis. Could you please tell them what happened that night so they understand?
Could I tell what happened?
Could you tell them what you did that night how you got involved in this matter?
Yeah, of course. Well, I mean, we're in Roswell, so it's not common to hear someone screaming for their life. So I run outside and I see, forgive me, your name again, ma'am? Meredith. I hear Meredith screaming and I run out there, and then I just, I see her trying to desperately get one of her dogs off the other. And so I do what I can to get him off. I'm not thinking, I let go. He goes right back. And then let's go again. And he gets Meredith. I'm not entirely sure where. I think the face first, but I'm not, doesn't matter. Got her hand and I put my arm around him, and with my other hand, I dialed 911. And then I just throw my phone on the ground and I yell, "We need help. We need an ambulance." And everyone's, coming outside looking. And then he starts calming down. And then by the time he was calm, I'm petting him and I'm telling him sorry that I just hit him on the head and was choking him. I kissed him on the head. He was sweet. And the police finally shows up. Shouldn't have been them. It should have been, my opinion, animal control. If we would fund that better. But anyways, topic for another time. They get Meredith the first aid. And then I'm exhausted. My body is shot. And I'm just like, can someone please grab this dog? He's calm. He's not even fighting me. But I just can't hold on any longer. I'm about to pass out because of the position I was sitting. And so they're like, okay, you can let him go. So I let him go. And then he went to grab the dog, Oakley. But he grabbed at him too fast, especially for it to be a dog that just got out of an episode. So, Oakley's, went right back into his episode because, he didn't go to him cautiously, just kind of went to him. He could have, even if he would have tripped into him like that, it was still came off way too abrupt for, an animal that just had an episode. Even a human that just had an episode would have acted probably that same way.
Excuse me. If Mr. Sale is going to continue to talk, if there's any way he could stay on video, that would be very helpful. That was the court reporter suggesting that, please.
This is Mitch Scandalakis. Mr. Court Reporter, did you get everything he did say?
Yes, I did. It's just easier to understand when I can see him.
Okay.
Okay.
Carmen, Cayman, continue with your narrative after you left the scene. Had this dog been tased before you left?
Yes. 2 times quickly. And I don't know how many times after that. I just knew I needed to go upstairs and grab some water. I did. And I laid down on my floor. I went outside to cool off because it was, cold out. And I began throwing up a lot. And I took a shower. And after the shower, I come back out, and they got him under a truck, and they just won't let him out. They wanted to get him out, they said. And then when he would get out or start to come out, they would start tasing him again. You know, if you're tasing an animal, they don't know that there's something in them attacking. They're just going to try to get away from it. The dog's, you know, kind of like, what the hell's going on, trying to get away from it. So they just kept tasing. I mean, if they had catch poles from the start, I don't think that would have been an issue. After like at least hypothetically maybe one tase is a fair argument, or two, but the catch poles could have done it all.
And this is Mitch Gandalakis. When he first approached the dog to take him under control, was it an aggressive approach?
Yes, it was way too abrupt for like I said, someone that was just having an episode, a dog that was just having an episode. I can see
again, the second, when you came out of your house, how long had you been in your house? You went in and laid down, threw up, took a shower, then came back out. What was that time lapse?
That was at least 30 minutes.
So by the time you left, you came back 30 minutes later. Is it your testimony they're still tasing this animal?
Yes. Now, I don't know how many times after that, but the animal was still under the truck being tased here and there. You know, I don't think it was, you know, a constant, obviously, but.
Okay, this is Mitch Gandalakis. The last question I have for you, did it appear the dog was under the truck to get away from the tasing?
Yes, because it originally wasn't even near the truck.
That's all I have. My next witness, unless there's any cross-examination, Jonathan?
Mr. Skandalakis, this is Jonathan Lagle. Because of the informality of this, we generally, as a practice, don't do cross-examination. It's more of a pro-evidence thing. I appreciate the opportunity to suggest if Ms. Hudson has any questions for Mr. Sale, this would be a procedural opportunity to pursue them.
Well, again, I'm not an attorney, but if the two witnesses are referencing what happened and I have body cam footage of exactly what they're saying, can I not submit that to show that the police officer did not aggressively reach down to grab the dog?
No, Ms. Hudson, I'm afraid you can't. You need to authenticate the video.
Yeah, I'm just gonna let this play out and consider myself educated.
This is Mitch Gandalakis. With that being said, I want to call Carolyn O'Brien.
This is Carolyn O'Brien.
Carolyn, could you please tell the board how you first came to meet Oakley?
Yes, I was called last May 21st, 2020 from DeKalb Lifeline to rescue him. Our rescue group takes severe medical cases, lots of deep medical that most rescues shy away from.
And how long have you been in business?
Since 2010.
How many dogs have you rescued and placed?
Oh gosh, since 2010, over 1,000, 1,200.
Okay, so it's fair to say you know what you're doing.
Right, we go deep. We don't go wide. We go very deep with the dogs that we rescue.
Now, with regards to Oakley, what were you told happened to him that caused them to call you to rescue him?
I was called by my rescue coordinator there at DeKalb that he had multiple injuries from, sorry, my dogs are hungry, multiple injuries from being dragged by a car. I know it's hideous, it's awful, but we've taken those before. So that's how I got contacted, and we immediately said, yes, we would rescue him.
Okay. And what were the injuries to Oakley as a result of the car dragging him that you were able to visually see?
Lots of road rash, but it was open wounded road rash. He had 2 drains in him, or the cone of shame for a little bit. Had a wonderful medical foster though. That was just terrific. She had, 4 or 5 other dogs, and really he came out of that just great, just great. He had no scarring except for one little place on his side.
Okay. Does the board have the pictures that we emailed a gentleman by the name of Rico who supposedly set all this stuff up?
Okay, you actually sent like, this is Rico Dollar from External Affairs. You actually sent like a multitude of photos, one in a PDF, and you sent several in one email. Which one? Which one?
I would like to see the one that has labeled May 21 and 22, 2020 with Oakley and Carolyn Bryan. She's wearing green pants, a white t-shirt.
Okay, give me a second.
And this is Carolyn O'Brien while he's pulling those up. These pictures that will represent, I was actually the one personally that went to pick Oakley up from the shelter. I did not send a transporter that day, and he was a delight, an absolute delight.
This is Mitch Kandalakis. That is exactly what I was going to ask you, Carolyn, that what was his disposition, and you just answered the question.
Rolled over, I'm sorry, this is Carolyn O'Brien. He rolled over on his belly, rolled in the grass. He was so happy to be outside. He loves to be outside. Kissed me, I kissed him. He was extraordinarily friendly and sweet and a beautiful disposition.
Okay,
And he was very thankful, I would say, as well. He knew he was safe. Mm-hmm.
Okay, this is Mitch Kandalakis. Did you take the picture of Oakley and the vet tech?
No, the veterinary staff does that for me, so we can.
You're not going to present that picture then. Did you take any of these other pictures that were submitted?
This is Carolyn, the one on the screen currently is the vet staff fell in love with Oakley. He gave them all kisses. So this is one of the vet techs who took care of him when he originally arrived there. But I did not take him.
I'm sorry, can you bring up the picture of Oakley being with Carolyn O'Brien after Meredith began fostering her?
The one that is showing now was Oakley about 2 days after we rescued him with his first foster mom.
Okay, and she sent that to you?
Correct.
Do you know if she had any issues with Oakley while she was fostering him?
No, other than he was, he was a rambunctious dog. He loves to, go and play, and she was trying to work and would often have to, get her dogs out and then get him out. And it was just a lot for her to manage, but specifically for Oakley, no issues.
Okay. And then there's another photograph that it depicts your image in it. Who is that woman? I don't.
Well, that's okay. So this is Carolyn. The picture you see right now depicts when Meredith originally got Oakley into foster. I went over there and just, to see him and help get him walked. And we had a great photo session with him. That's him kissing Meredith. I think on his first or second day, Meredith would have to confirm that he was in her home for foster.
Okay, and the next picture.
That was one of our photo sessions when I went to go walk him. That's his big smile right there.
Okay. Now let's get back to the day in question. You were on the scene, is that correct?
I was called by Meredith. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Cayman actually called me, but Meredith called for me to come and told me what happened, to please come and get Oakley. So at that point, I don't know what I'm coming into. I just know that she was bit and I need to come get Oakley. I only live about 2 minutes from Meredith in Roswell, so I got there pretty quickly.
And what did you see when you got there? What was the scene?
So when I arrived on the scene, Oakley he was already under the truck, and he was screaming in pain. I went up to the officers and told them who I was. I knew Oakley. Could I please try to help get him? Of course, I was told no. They didn't care who I was. This was they've had this under control. At the end of the day, I sat there for the next hour watching them tase Oakley, hear him screaming in pain. It was the hardest thing. I just begged them to stop and they wouldn't. There was no process. There was no protocol. There was no professionalism. I called Fulton County myself. I said, can you please get someone out here ASAP? I know you've been called. We need you ASAP. And at that point, Officer Teresa, forgive me, I don't know her name, showed up and she was absolutely magnificent. She could not believe what was going on. Officers were standing to the right. If you're looking at the truck, to the right, 3 of them had catch poles and were doing nothing with them. Officer Teresa, I said, please go get Oakley. She said, Carolyn, I am. I told her who I was. She told me who she was. And she then worked as best she could with the officers. I don't think the officers, in my opinion, were working with her at all very well. They were, in my opinion, quite rude. But I will just say this, Officer Teresa did a fantastic job. They got Oakley in the truck. She was very kind because I was in tears after seeing this dog tortured. He was bleeding from his nose. He was bleeding from his rear end. He was screaming in pain with just this low level bark that he could get out to just say, help me. She offered to let me see him in the truck before she took him. And that was tough. But he,
Ms. Scandalakis, let me stop you and ask you a question. When Ms. Gray, which is Teresa Gray, took control of Oakley, did he try to bite her?
oh gosh, no, not at all. No.
Well, tell me how she got him into her truck without him biting her.
I don't know the answer. I do know there was a catch pole because I could see out of my right eye, not my left one, because I was at the corner of the truck. And they put him in on the other side of the truck. But it was with a catch pole and lifted him up there. And she said to me, and this is hearsay, so I probably, but she said, he's not a bad dog. I said, no, he's not.
That's all I have.
This is Matthew Kallmeyer. I just have to ask the group to indulge me for 1 second for a moment of education. The photos that we were just shown, was that by chance taken by the individual that was just speaking? Every one of those photos?
No, those photos were sent to me by his first foster. I took several of them. And then the veterinary clinic who takes care of our dogs and takes pictures so we can post updates for their medical situation. That one was taken by the vet staff. I have her cell phone number. And
Thank you, ma'am. I was just clarifying because I heard earlier in our conversation today that something was not allowed to be shown if the person that directly didn't take the video or take a photo was not present to go ahead and describe it. So I am a novice at this. I was just trying to go ahead and get some more education. Maybe one of the two attorneys present in the room could go ahead and help educate me as to why I'm missing in this situation.
Matt, I'm happy. Excuse me. This is Jonathan Legel. I'm happy to share. There were no objections to the material put up. That's why it was admitted.
I apologize. This is Mitch Scandalakis. Carolyn, I apologize. I've got one more question. You have dealt, or let me ask it this way, so I'm not leading you. What kind of breed do you deal with mostly in your rescue?
Pit bulls.
And can you please explain to all of these nice people what you think happened here based upon your experience in dealing with these rescue animals and you know, everything you put up with on a day-to-day basis, rescuing them, adopting them out, fostering them out?
Yep. We've had this similar situation happen before. It just did not escalate the way this one did, unfortunately. When a dog is triggered, whether by another dog or a cat or any trigger, when they cannot get to that trigger, they will often redirect that anger because they're so amped up they don't really, they get in a zone and they go for whatever's right there. Oakley did that with Rosie, Meredith's dog. And they'd been best friends. They'd been to the dog park that day and played all day. They'd had such a beautiful day. He didn't really know what he was doing, right? He knew he wanted to do something about the other dog. So he redirected, and in that redirection, when Meredith tried to separate them, it happens. It often happens that they will get bit, the person trying to separate them. I've had it happen to me. And at the end of the day, it happened. None of this was Oakley's fault. We were very clear about Oakley needed to go to a foster home with no small dogs and no cats. But he, has been fine with dogs that are his weight. He's 53 pounds, now 55. So he'd been fine, and he'd been fine with Rosie that whole time. Like Meredith said, they had walked numerous times that way, and on that particular day had been that same way 3 times with no triggers. He's great.
This is Mitch Andalakis. Carolyn, let me ask you this. Had you walked with Meredith before with Oakley and her other dog on that same path, that same?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
How long before this incident? Do you recall roughly?
About a week, maybe a week and a couple days before. We walked the exact same way. I walked Oakley, she walked Rosie, no issues. We saw people, we saw other dogs, but they were not untethered, right? They were not illegally off leash. And this one illegally off leash dog, boy, he really created a situation where we are now, which is a little bit mind boggling for me, for Oakley.
Thank you, Carolyn. At this time, I would like to have Michelle Anchors Johnson speak to us. Is she on?
Michelle? Yes, Michelle Johnson here. Sorry.
Michelle, please tell the board and everyone why you or how you are involved in this matter.
Okay, sure. I work with Carolyn with Two Tails Rescue, and so I got to know Oakley when he first went to boarding at the dog spot. I believe it was in August, and we found another foster home for him, and that was with Meredith Massasack. And she took him home, and she had him for 2 weeks. And then this unfortunate incident occurred. So Oakley was allowed to leave Fulton County Animal Control and go to the dog spot for his quarantine, which was a place that he was familiar with because that's where he had been boarded prior to that. So he went there and he served his quarantine. And after the 10th day, I was there taking him to a park and giving him a hamburger and an ice cream. And we had a great day together that day. And then I went to see him every other day after that. So I saw him at least 31 times between then and February. And we just did walks together and car rides and went to the park and, just spent time together. So he's kind of my dog that I can't adopt, even though I would love to.
So this is Mitch Andalakis, other than feeding him bad food, do you have any issues with him?
Michelle Johnson, I did not have any issues with Oakley ever. He was always very sweet, very friendly, loving, silly, enjoyed time with me, enjoyed our walks together, and no issues.
Okay, Rico, this is Mitch Andalakis. If Rico could pull up that picture of Oakley with Michelle. She's wearing a black baseball cap, wearing a gray sweatshirt.
Give me a second.
Yes, sir.
This is Chairman Ware. Jonathan, may I interrupt for a moment?
It's your board, Madam Chairman. What can I do?
I'm not trying to rush anyone or push anyone, but isn't there a time limit on presentations? And if so, can you please tell me where we stand with that so that Fulton County can do their rebuttal, and then of course Mr. Skandalakis can do his final closing arguments?
Madam Chair, there is a time limit. We generally recommend and allow 15 minutes to the parties, but at the same time, we want to give each party as much opportunity for their due process as possible. The chair can always call a motion, but which would close any testimony. But at the same time, I would suggest an opportunity for perhaps both sides to finish their presentation in an accelerated pace and with as much due process as is allowable and as reasonable for all of them.
This is Mitch Skandalakis.
Wonderful.
That being said, I will dispense with that photograph that Rico's looking for and just go to our last witness, if that's okay with everyone.
This is Chairman Ware. Thank you. We'd appreciate it, just because, as I'm sure all of us have had a long day, it's getting late and we want to make sure everyone does get their fair amount of time without it exceeding. So please move forward.
Absolutely. This is Mitch Skandalakis. Ms. Paulette, are you there?
I am here. Hello, this is Cindy Paulette.
Okay, just step back a little from the camera.
Yes, sir. Sorry, I couldn't get my picture on the laptop, so I had to pull you up on my phone. I am here, and I have our person right here, our little person. Where you at, Oak? Where you at, Oak? There he is. He got dressed up for you guys. He's got a little bandana on. I have had Oakley since February the 16th, and I can tell you that when I started seeing his picture on Facebook and hearing his story, it was a couple months, because I recently had lost a dog in last year, and I will be short with my comments. I knew I wanted to get another dog, and I knew I wanted to give a dog a chance who I felt really could benefit from that chance. And when I heard about Oakley, and look at him, he just wants to be loved, y'all. He's a sweetheart. I knew that I had to have him. And so when I spoke with Michelle and she told me about all of the, everything that happened, I talked about it with my boyfriend, because, you always want to take everything into consideration. But I knew I had, read books about the Vic dogs, and I knew that dogs that had been in abuse situations, how grateful and how wonderful they can be, and they can be rehabilitated. And I can tell you, since we have had him, we have had no incidences. I even had a dog wander into the yard the other day while I was walking Oakley, and he didn't react at all. I just said, "Hey, Oak." I'm like, I knew the dog. The dog sometimes gets out of its yard. I said, "Oh, that's just Bam Bam." And so I put Bam Bam in my fence, and, Oakley didn't react at all. And I think that's a testament, is when you put a dog in a place where he's stable and he has that love and that attention, because I'm a one-woman dog. He loves me and my boyfriend. We do everything we can for him. He loves rides. He loves walks. He's a good dog, and he needs this chance. He is not a dangerous dog. I can promise you that. He is so grateful and so loving that when I hear that he was tased like that, it just breaks my heart. That's just wrong. And so I just really plead that you all will give him this chance that he truly deserves. He is a wonderful dog.
Thank you, Ms. Paulette. That's all I have, Madam Chairman and Mr. Logan.
This is Chairman Ware. Fulton County, do you have any closing statements you'd like to make?
No, I don't have any closing statements.
Mr. Skandalakis, do you have any closing statements you'd like to make?
I would just like to thank y'all. I'm sorry I'm getting a little emotional here because of this dog. He needs a second chance, and he does not need to be labeled dangerous, and there has not been any evidence to this point to allow it to carry that designation. That's all I have. And I would move
Do
to,
we have any questions or comments from board members? I have one, but I'd like for you to go first if anyone else has anything they'd like to say.
This is Kathy Crawford. I have one question. Meredith, were you the foster parent of Oakley at one point in time?
This is Meredith, yes.
Okay, I just needed you to clarify that for me. Okay, thank you. I'm good.
This is Jessica.
Any other questions?
I just wanted to clarify. I believe Mr. Skandalakis said as of February 15th, there was no formal investigation by Roswell Police Department. It was also a provoked attack by a dog going against Fulton County ordinances, not on a leash. Also, there's been no further testimony from Officer Willingham. If anything, this looks like a blatant violation of Roswell Police's use of force policy. And this is absolutely, it disgusts me. And that's all I have to say.
Ms. Hamby, could you just repeat the name of that officer again, please?
I believe it was Officer Teresa Willingham.
Thank
Correct me if I'm wrong.
Anyone else?
I have a comment. My name is Andrew Goldner. I was incorrectly identified as Andrew Goldberg. My last name is Goldner. I'm counsel for Meredith, who's testified. I'm here just as an interested observer. We're pursuing a civil claim against the off-leash dog owner. Primarily, I wanted my name corrected. Secondarily, as a public service announcement to help you save time in the future, to the extent that the Georgia Rules of Evidence inform this board's procedures, people are clearly allowed to authenticate themselves in both video and photograph, regardless of whether they were the ones that took the photograph or video. That's day one evidentiary stuff. So I hope that helps y'all in the future sort of streamline and expedite things. As long as the person who is depicted in the photo or video can testify that it is them so depicted, you do not need the person who actually took the photo or video to have that be admissible. So I hope that helps y'all in the future, and I appreciate everybody's time.
This is Chairman Ware. Anyone else? Since I'm not hearing anyone else, I'd like to ask a couple of questions to just make sure I have everything clear in my head. Ms. Hudson, who does the dog currently belong to? Would that be Fulton County Animal Control?
I think there would be some disagreement with regard to who the dog has custody and control of. The Carolyn O'Brien's courier, I can't remember her name, signed a live evidence foster agreement saying that they would not transfer ownership, remove the animal from the dog spot, etc. So according to that live evidence foster agreement, the dog's custody and control would be shared between the dog spot and Fulton County Animal Services. It's my understanding that the dog was adopted out.
The dog was adopted out. So if the dog was adopted out, and this is Chairman Ware, was it neutered prior to being adopted out?
This is Carolyn O'Brien. All of our dogs are spayed, neutered, microchipped, fully vetted, dewormed, everything before they're adopted out. Oakley had already been neutered prior to this.
What? This is Chairman Ware. Thank you for that. Now, the question I have for the young lady that she and her boyfriend are currently the caregivers for the dog, could you please tell me your living situation? Are you in a house or an apartment? Do you have a fenced-in backyard? If you could just sort of educate me on your
Sure.
situation.
This is Cindy Paulette. I would be happy to. My boyfriend and I, we live in a rural area. We have a house. It's a home that we own. We don't live in a neighborhood. I do have 2 neighbors, but they are not close up to me. I do have a fenced in part of my yard, which is on the side of my house. I also have a small part of the front part of my house that is fenced in. When I walk Oakley, I walk him around my yard. I have taken him for car rides and walked him at a couple of places and never had any incidences. One of my neighbors actually has a dog. And his dog actually runs loose from time to time. Oakley will notice him, but he does not. Since we've had Oakley, we have had no incidences where there has been any type of aggression. Even when he rides in the car, if he sees another animal, or another dog, he doesn't react. And like I said, when that dog came in my yard the other day, when I first saw the dog, I knew, just because I've had a pit bull before I've had this dog. And I just know, just from being around big animals, if you see another dog, a lot of times they go by whatever your vibe is, whatever your reaction is. And so I was just like, oh, it's just Bam Bam. So, I mean, he really is a loving dog, and he is so thankful and so grateful. He wants to please. He's obedient. I don't have incidents with him at all. I mean, on anything. I don't have a complaint about him.
Mr. Chairman Ware again. Just curious, what type of leash do you use for him? Do you use a retractable leash or a 6-foot leash, or what type of leash do you use when you walk him?
Yes, ma'am. This is Cindy Paulette. I use a 6-inch leash. It is not a retractable leash. I do have something that fits on top of his leash that actually says socially distancing. Please give me space. And that's just, when I am walking somewhere, if somebody does, see that, they can know that, hey, maybe you might want to give him space. And not to say that he would need it. I just bought that because I'm very much tried to be a very proactive person, knowing the things that he has been through, even though we've had absolutely no problems with him. And like I said, I've had a pit bull before I had him. And the pit bull that I had before him, even though he loved people, he wasn't always dog friendly. And not to say that Oakley is not dog friendly, but I know how to handle, and that's why I felt like I could do a good job, and my boyfriend could do a good job in helping Oakley to adjust to a home life, is because we know how to handle him and how to work with him and how to help him and train him. I'm sorry, is anybody still there?
Yes, Mr. Chairman Ware. Thank you for your response. And one last quick yes or no question. Do you by chance have a beware of dog sign anywhere on your property?
Yes, ma'am, I do.
Thank you. That's all the questions I have. Are there any additional questions or comments from any of the board members, or do any of the board members have a motion they'd like to introduce?
This is Jessica Hamby. I'd like to introduce a motion to deem this dog not vicious or dangerous.
This is Kathy Crawford. I second that motion.
Jonathan, would you mind doing the roll call and taking the vote, please?
Certainly. This is Jonathan Legel. On the question of whether this particular animal is not dangerous, Member Crawford, how do you vote?
I support the motion.
Member Hamby?
I support the motion.
Member Johnson?
Yes, I support the motion. Yes.
Member Miller?
How about yes?
Member Wade?
I vote the dog is not dangerous or vicious.
Thank you. And Member Ware?
I vote the dog not dangerous.
All right. Based on my analysis, excuse me, this is Jonathan Legel. Based on my analysis, that's a unanimous decision that Oakley is not dangerous. And I propose that closes our agenda for the evening. Madam Chair, the floor is yours if you'd like to entertain another motion, or if there's anything else that you'd like to raise?
I would first like to thank everyone that gave their time this evening, and like to see if there's a motion from anyone on the board to close this meeting.
This is Leslie Johnson. I make a motion to adjourn.
Do I have a second?
I motion, second motion.
And I will raise the vote. This is Jonathan Legel. Member Crawford,
Seconded the
motion to adjourn.
This is Matthew Colmeyer. Who seconded the motion, please?
Member Hamby.
Thank you.
And
Member Crawford,
Kathy,
do you vote to adjourn?
Yes, Kathy Crawford supports the motion to adjourn.
And Member Hamby,
I support the motion to adjourn.
and Member Johnson,
I support the motion to adjourn.
and Member Miller,
Yes.
and Member Wade,
Yes.
and Member Ware.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you all for your attention. This is Mitch Scandalakis. I really appreciate it on behalf of this dog.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. This is Jonathan Legel. I would suggest that was a unanimous vote to adjourn the meeting. Based on my analysis, the meeting's adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for all your involvement, your participation, and your support. I appreciate everything.
Thank you all.